I'm gonna minimize.
All right,
You.
you're online. So,
Okay.
hey, everybody, we're just going to wait until we get the participants to come out, and then we'll get started here in a minute. Want to welcome everybody out tonight. I have a guest speaker on tonight. I have Jessica. She is over at Embry-Riddle, and she's helping me tonight because Wendy could not be here. We will be getting started here very soon. Let her know. Be sure that you go to the Q&A if you have questions or statements or something that you would like to say, put into this conversation, and she will be monitoring those. If you do the chat, that's just kind of one of those that we don't really look at. I mean, we will. Please don't think that we don't pay attention to it, but we're paying more attention to the like I said, the Q&As more than anything else. So we're going to get ready in about 30 seconds. Okay, hello everybody. This is Jim Howard with Trinity Security Allies. I got Jessica on the other side of Florida. She's helping us out tonight. We will be talking about threat profiling. This is the third part of it. We'll be talking about atmospherics, kinesics, and biometrics. I think that this is the more exciting part, or the more, it is something that if you learn, you truly learn. It is just a way that it really starts to pick up and help you in situational awareness, knowing where you're at, knowing what's going on around you, and just keeping you safer and keeping your family safe. So we're going to get started right now. Once again, it's just a sign of the times. Wendy and I were having lunch with Ricky Rooks, who is with the Southeast District Manager with USCCA. And he was telling me that he was having lunch with his wife at a mall. And he said that while they were at the mall, he started to hear what he described it as a roar, like a slow roar. And so he kind of stopped the conversation with his wife and listened to it again. And then all of a sudden he started seeing people running. Now, when we have something like this, this is kind of where we're getting into the atmospherics, what is actually going on around you. And of course, Ricky said that he got up, the restaurant that they were eating at was on the second floor. He got up and walked over, and he looked down on the first floor, and there was a guy there with a gun. The gun kept misfiring, was malfunctioning, and before Ricky really could do anything, Ricky was a police officer around Kansas City. And before he could really do anything, the local police were there and subdued the person. But it was just one of these things of where he was paying attention to the noise. And this is, like I said, where we get into the atmospherics. So I say this once again because I just think that you really need to pay attention to this. Yes, things can happen. Yes, we read about them all the time. Yes, we see them all the time. And we do need to be aware of our surroundings. But we do live in Florida. And the stuff that we're seeing on the news really isn't happening around here right now. But as I said it before, and Ricky and I were talking about this, we would have never thought it would have happened in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's a little small area. But something that could go wrong, something that could go completely wrong, could start us having issues in this area like we see in the other towns in the other states. Now, we must stay alert. This is just all there is to it. Matthew 10:16 says, I am sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be as shrewd as snakes and innocent as doves. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be sober, be on alert. your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. And Proverbs 27:12 says, the prudent sees danger and takes refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. So we have to understand that we really need to start watching for the danger signs. Now, what we did on July the 9th, we did a training class on situational awareness. And what situational awareness is, it is the capability to identify, process, comprehend the critical elements of information about what is happening to the team with regards to the mission. More simply, it's knowing what is going on around you. We discussed it on what to look for, games to play, like looking for the Volkswagen, different things like that you can start to increase your situational awareness. Knowing what the color of the person's shirt sitting next to you, getting to know people like the waitresses and the bartenders, counting how many are there, knowing where the exits are. These are things that we can do when we get involved in situational awareness. And then on the 13th of August, we did our training, the first training on what is called combat profiling and left of bang, but of course we call it threat profiling. We want to make sure that this is not combat, folks. This is a little bit of survival, and this is paying attention to things out here that can hurt you. But you have to understand, and you need to make sure that you do understand that if you're ever have something that happens to you, yes, it is a fight for your life. It could be a fight for your family, the different things like this, but we don't live in a combat zone. So please understand, it's the same sort of teachings, but we have to have it a little bit different because I just throw this out here because in the combat profiling, it talks about there's three things you do with the enemy. You kill the enemy, you capture the enemy, or you let the enemy go. Well, we're a little bit different because if we see a threat, we bring that threat to the Lord. That is what we're supposed to be doing. I also use a lot of material from the Left of Bang. This book is an incredible book. I've only scratched the surface of it. It really is. I would have to read it 3 or 4 times to really grasp everything that is in this book. It's done by Patrick Van Horn. It's a great book. Now, when we got into threat profiling, what we talked about is it's a combination of time-tested current trend profiling and behavioral pattern analysis. It relies on identifying typical human behavioral patterns. This will allow you to detect a threat. We looked at this picture and we were able to read a lot in this picture. This training is for everyone. When we talk about this, everybody needs this training, not just your safety team, but your volunteers and your first lines of defense. I train my kids on things to look out for. I train my kids in situational awareness. I have taught them to be prepared. If they see something or if they hear me say something, they know what they should be doing. So explain to them that really everybody's an important part of this ministry. And when we talk about the ministry, our ministry doesn't stop at church. Our ministry goes beyond the boundaries of church. This is our life. We need to provide training for everybody. These are the type of things that we're talking about we're doing tonight, is preparing everybody for it. And if we see something, we say something. This is very important. People go, well, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want people to think I was a nosy busybody. I used to tell recruits that when you went on the street and got your sector, your district, wherever you were going to work all the time, find the nosiest little lady that was out there that knew everything about everybody, because she would be able to give you information on what was happening on the street. Now, when we talk about threat profiling, we have to look at what we call our baseline and our anomalies. Now, we have 3 types of people that come into our businesses, our churches, our environment. They come to participate. Now, we used to say they come to worship, but since we're talking about a broad overview here of looking at everything, every situation that we may be talking about, if you run a business, if you are a service-oriented business, what you have are 3 types of people that come in to your place. Now, when I say those that are hurting, if we're looking at a customer, it's somebody that needs something. And you're going to help that person, especially in a business, to where you make sure that they're taken care of. In a church, we're looking for those that are hurting, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we administer to those. We want to be there for those. There are people hurting all over this country right now. There are people that have lost their jobs. That look, I in a sense hurt because I'm not back in the church. We've been having these little things like a beach baptism. We had to get together with the elders the other night. I'm craving that. I want to get back there. And we're not alone in this. We're not the only ones that are having this problem. When we read out here, the Center for Disease Control Director Robert Redfield said in a Buck Institute webinar that suicides and drug overdoses have surpassed the death rate for COVID-19 among high school students. Redfield argued that lockdowns and lack of public schooling constitutes a disproportionately negative impact on young people's mental health. I got news for Dr. Redfield. It had a negative impact on my life. I don't like being cooped up like this. I would rather be doing this training in person in front of you. So these are the things that just, we got to make sure that, we go to these people that are hurting and we make sure that we talk to them. We make sure that we let them know who we are, because they're one step away of doing something they may regret for the rest of their life, and they could become the wolf if we don't do what we're supposed to be doing. And of course, what we're always looking for are the wolves. And they can come in different sizes and different shapes and different personalities. It just doesn't have to be a person with a gun. You may have somebody that's abusive to his wife. You may have the prophet that comes in. We're going to have people that when we start really, truly opening up, that are going to be saying this was a hoax, this was not true, this was just a conspiracy, a government conspiracy. We're going to have those that say this is the end of the world. And of course, we are going to have those that are hurting. But we have to watch out for the wolves that can walk inside our churches. Now, when we get into threat profiling, we talk about the domains. And just a few weeks ago, we talked about heuristics, and we talked about proxemics and geographics. We're just going to basically touch on those again. Heuristics are a mental shortcut that helps us make judgment quickly. It is an approach to solving problems that takes one's personal experience into account. Your heuristics allow you to think through possible outcomes quickly and arrive at a solution that will work for your unique problem. And of course, we talked about these can be good or these can be bad. The next thing that we talked about was proxemics. And the proxemics is the act of betraying affiliation through the dynamics of proximity, okay? Proxemics is not limited to just the relationships between people. It can be applied to a person's relationship to things, places, and events. This happens at an unconscious, subconscious, and a conscious level. Proxemics change by cultures and individuals where we move and give people space. Other cultures will continue to move forward, not as an aggressive move, but more as a natural norm. Some people have a different gauge of space. I have a friend that doesn't like me getting too close to him. His personal space is a little bigger than what normal people's personal spaces are. And so we do what we call the proxemic dance. We move back and forth. Now, we also talked about in proxemics, we talked about relative distance, and we talked about intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space. We gave you descriptions of that. And if you want to think about it real quick, intimate space is your hand and up to your elbow. Personal distance is your arm. Social distance is 2 arm lengths away. And of course, public distance is public speaking or over 6 to 12 feet. Of course, now relative, distances, we have to have our social distancing all the time, which of course is 6 feet. We also talked about movement, and people move for a reason. And in the proxemics, you have to watch how the person moves, because a person moving with a friendly movement is maybe saw somebody in the crowd they know and they're going over to greet them. But then you also have to watch out for the threatening movement. And this is watching for victims, maybe hiding from the victim or moving quickly toward the victim to harm the victim. We also talked about the proxemic pull, which is a natural tendency for a person that feels comfortable to be pulled towards something. We talked about family members. We talked about friends. We talked about the warm handshake that somebody may stick out when you walk into the church. We talked about malls, movie theaters, they all have this proxemic pull. The beach, everybody wants to go there. So it has this pull. Like we said, it doesn't only have to do with people, it could be places and things. And then we also talked about the proxemic push, which is a natural tendency for a person or group of people to move away from other people or objects which are unfamiliar or perceived as a threat. It can also occur when a situation or area is unagreeable, or they do not want to associate with a specific person or a group. You know that person that you just try to avoid all the time, and when you see them, you start to push away from it. There's certain areas I don't like to go to. I don't like going into Tampa because of traffic. So I do a proxemic push against that place. But yet I do like my Johnny Brusco's restaurant up here, and it has a pull to me. Now, we also have the proxemic negative skill, and that's where it talked about allowing your threat to get too close to you. This is that it takes little or no effort to hurt you. So we have to be careful when we have people that we're watching and letting them get too close. Now, people who are looking for mass casualties will look for people that has a proxemic pull, like we were talking about. Where have we seen it? Movie theaters, Walmarts. We've seen it at schools, all these different places. Now, students may say that schools have a proxemic push on them, but it still is a place where a lot of people are. We also talked about geographics. And geographics is just really, just to put it in a nutshell, it's if you know where you're at, you'll be comfortable in your movement. If you do not, you're uncomfortable, and you can spot it in people. We see it all the time here in Florida. We see people that are totally lost, that are following their GPS, don't know which way they're going, and don't make a decision until they're right there at the street. We also talked about habitual areas, which are restaurants and places that we go in and feel comfortable. We talked about anchor points. These are places like our home. Our home is our home base. It is our anchor point. You have to be a family member or invited to come in. Inside your home, you may have habitual areas, the kitchen, the living room, and the bathroom, but yet the parents' bedroom is an anchor point. So tonight, what we're going to get started talking on is atmospherics. Now, atmospherics is something you really should be paying attention to. And if you have children, you've already started this. If you don't have children, I'm sorry, but we use our five senses, and we subconsciously, through intuition, use also what we call a sixth sense. But when we talk about these things, atmospherics is how a place looks, sounds, tastes, feels, and smells. And I really don't like it putting it as, but this is from the Marine Corps, but it is also a person looks, sounds, take out the word taste, but feels and smells. Because I was talking about children. I know what it's like using one of my senses when I had my little girls and they had a messy diaper. Yes, the atmospherics changed. Paying attention to the changes in the atmospherics of a community or individual or how it affects the baseline will allow you to deal with an anomaly before they can disrupt the baseline of the church or the area that you're in. Now, we talk about that we use these, but how do you mean? Threat profiling is about situational awareness and proactively identifying threats. Being able to read the mood of the situation is a part of having situational awareness. The inability to pick up the atmospherics of a situation can be deadly, like the customer who strolls into a convenience store while an armed robbery is going on. Or a police officer who gets complacent and goes into Starbucks and doesn't think about making sure that he's checking the atmospherics when he walks in. When people seem tense or afraid, it is likely that something has occurred or is present that is making them feel that way. Good example I'll talk about again with kids. With kids, you have, especially those that have boys, you're downstairs, you hear them running around, you hear them acting crazy, you hear them bouncing off the walls, they're screaming, kicking, don't do this, he's in my space, all these different things like that. And you just think everything is normal because that's normally the way they act. But then all of a sudden, there's total silence upstairs. And the first thing that you think of is, what are they doing? You know, it changes the atmospherics. Now, there's two types of atmospherics when we look at this. There's what we call the positive atmospherics. The thing with atmospherics that a lot of people don't understand is they're contagious. If you see people laughing and you kind of, they're laughing and you're in that group, The next thing you know, you're laughing. You might not even know what the joke is, but you're laughing with them. These are the things that we call positive. This is the positive energy that we want to be around. And then the second category, when we look at atmospherics, is negative. And this is anger. This is screaming. This is things that we really are afraid to walk into. We want to move away from it. We want to do that push on it. But it also is catching. The thing of it is if your spouse or your best friend or somebody like that comes against you negative, normally if it takes you off guard and you're really not on your game, you may respond negative. So we have to make sure that we keep our egos in check and our feelings in check. But when we run into a negative atmospherics, we know how to deal with it. Because if we lose our temper, usually we lose the war. The next thing we want to talk about is you need to go to a mall and start looking at the atmospherics. Now set your baseline. Get your baseline set on what it looks like. And when we talk about this, like I said, use your five senses. The smell. You'll smell fresh made bagels or coffee or different things like that. You walk by the shop that has all the creams and you notice it. Set up the baseline and start to watch for the anomalies. Now, what type of anomalies are you going to see? Most people that are in the mall are in a pretty good mood, but watch the family that the child doesn't get exactly what they want, and their atmospherics is completely different from the atmospherics that you see normal people in the mall. And of course, as they walk by people, their atmospherics start to change. They're like, oh, they're either that poor child, or can you shut that child up, or give the child the toy it wants. They start to change. So we pay attention. It's a great place to start working on this, looking at people and watching their atmospherics. Now, see, the thing that you got to understand is atmospherics is going to work with the kinesics and also the biometrics. Now, if I were to take this picture, if this were you out in the field, and the atmospherics of this right now would be, I probably do need to get inside. But what I'm getting at is you're going to smell. You're going to smell the rain that's in the area. You're going to see the clouds. You'll see the lightning. You'll hear the thunder. That kind of gives you an idea of how far away it is. You'll even feel it tingle at times when it gets close. But these are type of things that happen when we get into areas that we need to start paying attention to. Now, my atmospherics right here might be that, hey, I probably need to get inside because it's pretty dark. But if I see this right here, everything changes. Everything changes. My whole attitude changes. Remember that sixth sense? That sixth sense now is going off because I'm thinking to myself, I need to seek shelter. This is not a good place to be in. But trust me, you'll hear sound. You'll smell things. Before the funnel hits the ground, before the funnel comes out of the clouds, you'll hear it totally quiet. And then you'll hear the roar. These are the atmospherics that we get into that we need to start paying attention when we're out walking around, being in the area. Just walking around at nighttime, making sure that you're paying attention to the noises around you. Tell me all five of your senses wouldn't be working right now. You would feel the heat. You would smell it. You would hear the sounds. You would hear that tire that's on fire right there blow, because once it burns the metal, the rubber out, it causes the air to explode out. You would be able to taste it. You would have that taste in your mouth of a vehicle or metal on fire. All of our five senses would be right there, and our atmospherics would be, this is a dangerous spot. This is someplace we need to get away from. We would be looking to see if we get help, but these are the things that we're looking at. Your atmospherics change from point to point. Driving down the street, you may turn on the corner and you're listening to your favorite song and everything's going great. And when you pull up on this, everything changes. So we need to start looking for those when we're out and about. So like I said, a mall is a great place to start, but use it in every single thing you get into. Now, when we're talking about inside the church, examples of what causes atmospherics to change is an intoxicated, suspicious, or homeless person on campus, a person crying hysterically or sitting alone, or a person not participating in the worship service or the offering or the communion. These are things that we need to be paying attention, because of the baseline of the church at that moment in time is that people are worshiping, but this person is sitting there not. Or this person has a blank stare against the pastor that's sitting up front, but is not participating in the communion or the offering. We need to be paying attention to those, because this is what we get into when we talk about atmospherics. Atmospherics is the collective mood of a situation or place and can provide an immediate indication of safety or danger. I went out and searched for a picture of Nice, France, and I think this is it here. And I asked for Bastille Day, and I think this is a picture of Bastille Day. And what you have to understand, that there was a lot of positive atmospherics going on right then. There was a sense of security. Remember, we talked about positive? We feel secure. There were people enjoying it. If you look on this picture here, you see people on the bridge enjoying the fireworks. This is their 4th of July. But what happened after everything was over with and they started making their way back to their hotels or their cars or leaving, a madman drove through the crowd in a truck and killed a lot of people. Now, the thing of it is the atmospherics changed from the positive to the negative in a matter of moments. But a lot of people weren't paying attention to the atmospherics that was going on during that time frame. Where when we see these pictures like this, we're thinking oohs and ahs. But what had really happened was, when this was over with and the madman was driving through the crowd, these oohs and ahs turned to screams and calls for help. So we have to make sure that we pay attention to what is going on in our environment, in our surroundings. And we need to be watching the atmospherics. That is how the baseline is of the place that you're at, and making sure that you're always paying attention to it. Now, when we talk about atmospherics, there's body movement that's involved in that. And so this is where we get into kinesics. And kinesics is the interpretation of body movement, gestures, facial expressions, etc., as a means of communication, also included, or grooming habits and the positioning of the body in space. This is often referred to as body language. Kinesics can be mimicked, faked, but like biometric clues, it's difficult to control a body's kinesics. Now, we have things that we call learned kinesics. And as you notice, this little girl up here, she's learning peekaboo. She didn't come out of her mother's womb ready to do peekaboo. This is something that we learn. We learn the peace sign. We learn, handshakes. We learn salutes. All these things like this, these are learned. But then we also have innate kinesics. And this is something in your DNA that is impossible for you to kind of control. This person here, it looks like he has a lazy eye. This is something that he could not control. But it's an innate kinesics that we see it and we kind of pay attention to it. But it's just something that it's like we don't understand. It's just a part of the DNA. It's where we hear people that sometimes have something in their throat all the time. And you think they've got, like they're going to cough it up, but they never do, because they just keep clearing their throat. Now we have mixed kinesis. And what that is we learned how to laugh at a young age. Our parents did peekaboo with us. And of course, we just got into, that was the funniest thing in the whole wide world. But as we get older, our laughter, our humor changes. And as we get older, sometimes in our environments, our attitude changes. But these become a part of us. And because of it, it is one of those things that from where the person comes from, or how they were brought up, or what type of movies they like to watch, all these different things, social behaviors start to kind of fix those mixed kinesics or form them. And of course, we have the typical facial kinesics, which are expressions of disgust, surprise, and other primary emotions that most of the time are universal across cultures. Facial expressions, like I said, are universal. They need to be read in clusters. We look at them all the different times, and we understand that a smile is a smile wherever we may go. A frown is a frown wherever we may go. When we see pictures of people smiling and happy, we understand that this is a positive. Of course, it's a positive. And then, of course, we're watching for those that we have to read in clusters. Because in this situation right now, yes, we do see a distraught person, but what is the reason behind it? What is it that she's looking at? What did she just receive that caused this reaction? We kind of know when we see somebody that is upset. In this picture right here, we see a gentleman that's upset, and we can just see it because of his facial expressions. We know that there's certain things that when we look at, we need to move away from it. When we see a person like this is basically what they call the look of disgust. And when you see something like this, you need to move away from that person. You need to do a proxemic push. Now, you have to have a lot of considerations when you look at kinesis because it's a very in-depth domain and several important items must be remembered. Always remember to establish a baseline before determining a kinesics. When we look at body language, like we look at this right here, the crossing of the arms mean multiple different things. Some people cross their arms when they're angry. Some people cross their arms when they're cold. Some people cross their arms. That's just because it's a natural feeling or a natural stance that they use because it's comfortable to them. Other people we talk about that it means that they're closing us off. So we have to make sure that we're looking at these different things. It's also, we get into domains when we talk about kinesics. We have the dominant and submissive. We have the uncomfortable and comfortable. We have the interested and uninterested. These are different domains. They're very in-depth. Like if we talk about the dominant, this person takes up a greater amount of space or in a territorial display. We know who these people are. They move their hands out. They sit in their chairs with their legs spread apart or crossed so they're taking up a lot of room. They maintain people's gazes. I mean, they can breach other intimate proxemic zones. And of course, they can just make a person feel uncomfortable. Then, of course, you have the submissive cluster, which is just the opposite of the dominant. Comfortable versus uncomfortable. Comfortable or friendly, easygoing, direct communication, feet bouncing. But then we get into the uncomfortable, and they're moving toward the door. Their legs are crossed while seated, forming a barrier. You know, their torso is leaning away from that person, distancing from a threat, or their torso is rotated away from the person or object. We have interested and uninterested clusters, people who make eye contact, repeating information. And then, of course, you have those that are uninterested that do no eye contact or uncomfortable. Their legs are bouncing. They're looking for an exit. But these get into the different types of kinesics. And you have to understand that you have to set the baseline with the person before you start to look at what could be a threat and what isn't a threat. But you have to get to know the person. And of course, there are when we get into it also, there's culturals. There's cultural differences because I remember one time I asked one of the pastors to go and talk to a lady that was sitting outside that had a full burqa on. And we were trying to figure out why she was sitting out there. It was in July, it was very hot. And when I looked at him and said, hey, could you go out and talk to her? Because I know you know most all the religions. And he got upset with me because he said, if I went out and talked to her, it would be an insult. I did not realize that. Their religion did not allow different men to come up and talk to the females. So then we asked one of the female pastors to go out. She did. She was there with her daughter, but she thought that we wouldn't allow her to come in. We said, please do. We got her some water. So understand, there's also cultural differences in kinesics. Now, we get into biometrics. They're clues or interpretations of physiological reactions, which are automatic, unlearned reaction to stimulus. This is something that your body is doing that is almost impossible to control. And when we talk about that, we talk about histamines. Blushing in the face and the ears when embarrassed is a histamine response. Extreme anger will cause reddening of the face. When adrenaline is pumping through, you can see their veins in their neck. You can see it in their chest as their chest starts to breathe, as they breathe in heavier because they're trying to get blood to all the important parts of the body. The hands, legs, and even the whole entire body may start to shake, especially when they're coming down. Pupil dilation is something to look for in biometrics. It'll dilate for a fraction of a second when somebody catches something that they're looking at that has caught their interest. Both dilation and constriction will occur when under the influence of alcohol and narcotics. And of course, bloodshot eyes. These are the things that we see, and these are the things that we know about. So this is the end of our atmospherics, kinesics, and biometrics. So I'm going to ask Jessica to come online. Do we have any questions?
Right now, there are no questions.
So, Jessica, how's school?
Pretty good. Thanks for asking, Dad.
Oh.
James Shoemaker says thank you.
Oh, thanks, James. All right. I kind of went past the time on the presentation, so I'll start closing up. If somebody else has some questions, Jessica, just cut in, and we'll go to them. Want to tell you some of the things that we are doing. We have our Facebook Live on Sunday night. It's for 30 minutes. It's kind of where I go out there, and some people say that I rant. We do have a lot of things that are going on, and we are paying attention to a lot of stuff that's happening out here. We just had a great a conversation with a couple of people that are going to be speaking at our church safety conference, which is coming up, and that is coming up. I'll have the information on that real soon. We also have our YouTube page. And listen, there are a lot of free videos out there. So people who are not members, there are free videos out there. But those of you that are members, you have access to these videos once we get them out there. You have to be patient with us right now because our video editor is over in Daytona, and we're trying to figure out a way of getting them over there so she can edit them for us and get it back so we can put it up on YouTube. But also be out there, God Logic Project, my friend Kevin Haggerty, he has his stuff out there, and it's just one of those that Kevin and I are all the time on. We're talking about controversial topics. Kevin's going to have me come over, and we're going to speak about police officers, how they feel about the public, and Kevin's going to give it from a public point of view because at one time, Kevin didn't like police officers just because of his lifestyle. Now they're his best friends, of course, because, hey, he accepted Christ, and Christ kind of opened his eyes up that we're not all that bad. We also have our free resources out online. These are open to anybody and everybody that's on this webinar tonight. We have putting together a safety team, developing a safety team, carrying weapons in the church, and Sunday morning what to look for. We will be working on our next one. I keep saying this, but I just got rid of a major I just got finished with a major project. There will be more information about that the closer we get to the conference, but be ready. All right. Our 4th annual Church Safety and Liability Conference is going to be hosted at Generations Christian Church again, 1540 Little Road in Trinity, Florida, on October the 17th, 2020. Breakfast is going to start at 7:30 to 8 o'clock, and the program starts at 8 to 5. Now, we're going to do it a little different this year. Used to in the past, we would have breakout sessions, but this year we're all going to be in the gathering just because of the COVID thing and because of breakouts. When you went from room to room, we'd have to clean them and all these different things like this. But here are some of the speakers that we have right now, and we're really excited about this. Kevin Smith, of course, who spoke last year. He's the Director of Faith and Opportunity Initiatives with the Department of Homeland Security. Corporal Alan Wilkett has always showed up at our conferences, but he is now retired, and he's working with human trafficking. And he's going to come in and talk about it. He's with a company right now that goes out and looks for children. Ricky Rooks, I just met with him. Super fantastic guy, Southeast District U.S. Manager of USCCA. I tell you, I listened to his story. You know, when I first met the guy, this guy is huge. He's 6 foot, at least 6'5". And I looked at him and I said, oh, this is going to be a good one. Because what he's going to be talking about, I had some concerns about it until he sat down with me and started talking. And I was like, this man is just, he's a brother from a different mother. He really is. It was incredible. He's a Christian. We talked about church safety because he's involved in it, and we hit it right off together. So it's going to be fun. Patrick Ledoux, he is with the Alliance Defending Freedom and Liberty Council member. What he does there is that he represents churches that he represented the pastor over here in Tampa that was arrested for having church services during the COVID-19 lockdown. Michael Fallon, who is the founder of Sovereign Nations, he looks at things that are going on that could affect the churches in the government, and he brings them to our attention. He was the guy that brought the critical race theory and the intersectionality to my attention and got me started on looking at it to figure out what was going on with it in the churches. I'm going to have the opportunity to speak. You know that. I'm there. I can't shut up. Ryan Burke is going to be talking about TyTech, which is a medical supplies that we're looking at right now. People have been asking me about buying kits and different things like that. What would I get? What would I recommend? Well, they have a kit that I would recommend. Cameron Allen, he's going to be talking about brain mapping, but he's going to be talking about mental illness. And it's really exciting to hear from this guy because I understand he's top in his league and he's just one of these brainiacs that we're asking him to make sure that he talks at our level. And then Sandra Smith, she's a Base Faith Clients. She does Protect My Ministry, which is all about making sure our children are safe. Ways to support us, prayers, always prayers. Memberships, $125 a month for a church or $100 a month if you pay all up at once. Online membership is $25 a month. I think Wendy will still let this 20 go. She's not really being hard on it because of a lot of stuff that's been going on. But we do this weekly online training and access to the video training library. And you also, as a online membership, you also get one ticket to the church safety conference. And you also, with the church, you get 5. We're also knocking the price down to $40 right now, an early bird special. So if you can, get out there and get your people. It's almost a 2-for-1 right now. Of course, we do training, and we are going to start doing our church safety networking group meetings again. We've got one set up. I'll get you the dates this Sunday, so be watching for it. And of course, we always are looking for people who would like to donate to a worthy 501c3, us. I tell you what, we're really excited about having USCCA there. It was just a great, great conversation with Ricky. And you know, the USCCA provides top-notch education, training, and self-defense legal protection for all responsible armed Americans. Now, he said something that really piqued my interest because I've had a few people talk to me about what would happen if they were walking down the street and was confronted by some of these protesters or a person who didn't like the clothes that they had on or the hat that they had on, and they got in their face and they pushed off on them. USCCA feels that that is a threat, and we'll working with you on this. So I was really excited to hear about that. So he's going to be talking more about that. You can join now to gain true peace of mind with a USCCA legal and financial protection program. Go to our webpage, look for the USCCA emblem or CCW insurance, and click on that, and you can fill out the information there. Any more? Any questions? Jess?
No more questions.
All right. All right. All right, people, friends, brothers, sisters, all y'all, I appreciate you being out here. I appreciate you coming out and listening. This is just one of these things that we have to make sure that we're paying attention to what is going on out here. It is changing times. It is changing times for our church. It's changing time for our families. It is just a different world right now when we come out of this COVID pandemic. We have to be prepared and we have to be ready. We have to make sure that we're watching what is going on, being aware of our surroundings. When driving, because of road rage and the different things like that, everything you do when you're out, even when you answer your door, make sure you know who it is. And start using these techniques that we talked about, the different domains that we talked about. Start sharpening your skills of recognizing where you're at. And just be safe out here and be blessed. God bless you, and God bless this country. Good night.